What if the world was not saved by the one standing at the top, but by the one willing to stay underneath? What if the moment that changed everything in the universe did not begin with victory, but with collapse? And what if one of the greatest avatars of Vishnu did not come as a king, or a warrior, or a blazing god of thunder, but as a turtle? This is the story of Kurma, the divine tortoise, the silent foundation beneath the chaos, and the forgotten truth that sometimes the holiest power is not the power that shines, but the power that holds. There was a time when the devas, the gods, were no longer as strong as they once were. Their energy had faded, their brilliance had weakened. The balance of the cosmos was slipping, slowly but dangerously, out of harmony. The asuras were rising in force, bold and hungry, pressing harder against the order of heaven. The universe had not fallen yet, but it was beginning to tilt, and that is how many real collapses begin, not with one dramatic explosion, but with quiet instability, with unseen weakness, with the feeling that something once steady is no longer enough to carry what it must carry. The devas knew they could not restore balance alone, so they turned to Vishnu, the preserver, the one who appears whenever creation begins to lose its center. And Vishnu offered them a plan so strange, so difficult, that it required both courage and humility. They would have to work with the asuras, not because they trusted them, not because they loved them, but because some tasks are so great that even enemies become temporary partners before destiny separates them again. Together, they would churn the ocean of milk, the great cosmic sea, and from its depths would arise treasures, powers, and eventually amrita, the nectar of immortality. That nectar could restore strength and renew balance in the worlds. It sounded magnificent, but hidden inside the plan was a truth many people learned too late. When you stir the depths, you do not control what rises first. The devas and asuras chose Mount Mandara as the churning rod. They wrapped the great serpent Vasuki around it like a rope. On one side stood the devas, on the other side stood the asuras. The cosmic ocean waited beneath them, vast and mysterious, holding within it both blessing and danger. Then the churning began, and almost at once, the plan started to fail. Mount Mandara could not stay upright. It was too heavy, too unstable, too immense. The mountain began to sink into the ocean, falling into the depths before the work had even truly begun. And suddenly, all the effort above became meaningless. Because nothing can turn if it has no base. Nothing can rise if it has no support. Nothing can endure if it has no foundation. That is what makes this myth feel so close to human life. Because so many people are trying to churn their own oceans, trying to change, trying to heal, trying to build careers, relationships, families, dreams. They gather plans, they gather effort, they gather motivation. But somewhere underneath it all, Mount Mandara is still sinking. Not because they are weak, but because they are trying to carry a great weight without something deep enough to hold it. That was the moment Vishnu took the form of Kurma. Not a dazzling celestial form, not a form designed to impress, not a form that looked glorious on the surface. A tortoise, ancient, grounded, immense, silent. It is such a strange image at first, and yet the deeper you look, the more perfect it becomes. The tortoise is not the symbol of speed, it is not the symbol of display, it is the symbol of endurance. It carries its shelter with it. It moves without panic. It survives by steadiness. It lives close to the ground, close to patience, close to time itself. So Vishnu descended into the cosmic waters as Kurma and placed himself beneath Mount Mandara. The mountain that had been sinking now rested on a back that would not break. And just like that, the impossible had a foundation. Above him the devas and asuras pulled with all their strength. Vasuki stretched and tightened, the mountain turned, the ocean roared. Everything above was motion, friction, exhaustion, ambition, and desire. But below all of it, Kurma remained still. And that contrast may be the deepest lesson in the entire story, because life above the surface is often restless. There are deadlines, conflicts, expectations, comparisons, fears, ambitions, disappointments, and endless pressure to keep moving. But beneath any life that can truly endure, there must be something slower, deeper, stronger than all that noise. There must be an inner Kurma, a foundation that does not collapse just because the world becomes turbulent. And then came the next truth of the churning. The first thing to emerge was not nectar. It was poison. Deadly poison. This part of the myth is one of the most emotionally powerful images in all of Hindu storytelling, because it tells us something people rarely want to hear, but desperately need to understand. When the depths are stirred, the first thing that rises is not always beauty. Sometimes it is pain. Sometimes it is grief. Sometimes it is anger that was buried years ago. Sometimes it is shame. Sometimes it is exhaustion that has been hidden beneath performance for far too long. Many people begin healing expecting immediate peace. They think if they are finally doing the right thing, the first reward should be calm. But when the ocean inside them is churned, what comes up first is not peace at all. It is old poison. And they panic. They think something is wrong. They think the process has failed. But Kurma's story says otherwise. The poison rising is not proof of failure. It is proof that the depths are finally being touched. This is why Kurma matters so much. He does not stop the churning. He supports it. He does not say, "You will avoid every difficult thing." He says, "You will not sink while the difficult thing is being brought to the surface." That is not a small kind of love. That is sacred love. Not always removing the burden, but becoming strong enough beneath us that the burden does not destroy us. If this part of Kurma's story is already speaking to you, pause here for a moment and tell me in the comments. What part of your life feels like it is being churned right now? Sometimes healing begins the moment we stop pretending the pressure is not there. As the churning continued, more and more wonders began to emerge from the ocean of milk. In different tellings, many treasures and divine beings rise from the sea. Beauty rises, fortune rises, mystery rises. Blessings that were hidden in the depths begin to reveal themselves one by one, and eventually the nectar appears. That is the rhythm of the myth. First, the sinking, then the foundation, then the poison, then the treasures, then the nectar. And how true that rhythm is in real life. First the breakdown, then the search for grounding, then the confrontation with buried pain, then the slow appearance of wisdom, strength, and grace. And only after that, the sweetness we thought would come first. But all of it depended on Kurma. That is the holy sadness and beauty of this avatar. The one who makes everything possible is often the least visible one in the story. The one carrying the mountain is hidden beneath the mountain. The one supporting the miracle is almost invisible while the miracle is happening. Is that not true in human life too? How many people live like Kurma every single day? The mother who absorbs stress so the children feel safe. The father who keeps showing up though no one sees his fear. The friend who listens without making the moment about themselves. The partner who stays steady while the other person is falling apart. The worker who quietly holds a whole team together. The soul who is tired, but still becomes a place of support for others. Kurma is for them, for the steady ones, for the hidden strong ones, for those whose love does not always look dramatic, but looks like endurance, patience, and reliability. And there is something else so profound here. Vishnu did not choose the most glamorous form. He chose the exact form the moment required. That is divine wisdom. Not becoming what looks impressive, becoming what is necessary. Some seasons of life do not require brilliance. They require grounding. Some moments do not require speed. They require steadiness. Some callings do not ask you to shine at the top of the mountain. They ask you to go beneath what is collapsing and hold it long enough for transformation to happen. That is Kurma, the strength to stay, the holiness of support, the discipline of carrying weight without turning bitter, the miracle of stillness beneath chaos. So what is the lesson of Kurma? It is this: before nectar, there may be poison. Before blessing, there may be burden. Before visible beauty, there may be invisible support. And none of that means the story is going wrong. It may mean the story is finally becoming real. So if your life feels heavy right now, if something inside you is being churned and you do not like what is rising, remember Kurma. Remember the God who did not rush to the top. Remember the God who went underneath. Remember the divine tortoise who held up the mountain so the work could continue. And ask yourself, gently and honestly, what in me needs to become steadier so I do not sink under the weight of my own becoming? If this story touched your heart, leave a comment and tell me which part stayed with you most. and comment the god you want me to make the next video about. Because sometimes the world is not saved by the one who shines the brightest. Sometimes it is saved by the one who quietly refuses to let the mountain sink.